you. All right, I've got a few slides for you here about your beautiful neighborhood. As you can see by these little green dots, there's a lot going on here. I started putting stuff down and wow, busy area. So we'll get through it in the easiest way possible, which is to take a little walk. We're here at the harbor. We'll start by going over here to Portola and East Cliff. Talk a little bit about some of the road work there, the medians, East Cliff Shopping Center. We'll come back over here to the harbor, talk about the bridge, the rail trail, some stuff going on in the neighborhoods here. Then we'll go up towards Bromer, talk about what's happening with that big lot on Bromer and 7th, and then go over on Bromer, talk about the new bus routes down by Simpkins Swim Center, and then out to Corcoran Lagoon here, down to Morin Lake, and around the way to the Pleasure Point area. So that said, I'll jump in. Let's start with East Cliff and Portola Drive. I'm sure you've all been stuck in the traffic over there during the construction, so here's a natural enough place to start. In case you didn't know, what's happening here is the replacement of a sewer collector line. We've had to do a number of emergency repairs on this old line recently, and it was finally time to just replace the whole thing. And so that's why you're seeing the road get dug up. And I can tell you it's a little bit of a mess under there. Things aren't exactly where they say they're going to be in the plans. Sometimes there's nothing at all, just a void. So we're glad we're doing the work. The sanitation project should be done here by December. And one question I've been getting a lot is, well, gosh, they're not putting the back of the road very nice. We know. We're planning a full resurfacing of the road when the sanitation project is done. Everything there is just temporary. And then we're going to resurface it nice and pretty for you. It might have to be in the spring, depending on when the sanitation project finishes up, just because we don't want to lay new asphalt in the middle of winter when it's cold and rainy. So that is coming. You just might have to wait till spring for your shiny new road. The other thing we've heard about is this planter right here. This is the old version of the planter. You might have noticed it has been paved over. There's a little bit of miscommunication about exactly what to do with the planters when they're done, but we do have funds available to put the planter back more or less as you see it with some plants like this. There are other options too that we could choose at this point. And I should say none of the other planters we're not going to touch them. We'll leave them as is. But with this first one where there was, that has been asphalted over, we could return it to plants like this. We could put potted plants on it, or we could pursue a piece of art. Would love your feedback tonight on any of those options. Should we take a quick poll? Anyone here? Who likes option 1? I've seen 4 or 5 hands. Option 2? Ish. Okay. Option 3, Art. Okay, 1.5. Okay, so I didn't see anyone online, but
What do you got for 1?
okay, I'm hearing the balance for option 1.
Trees.
Okay. Moving on, medians have been a hot topic this past year because of the weeds in the medians primarily, and this gives back to the Live Oak Streetscape Maintenance Area called CSA 9E, County Service Area 9E. It's actually a pretty big area, most people don't realize, but it's all of Live Oak and Pleasure Point and goes up through SoCal, most of the way to Cabrillo College. This was put in place to manage or to the medians and sidewalks that were put in with redevelopment money. And there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, over 1,600 trees and 25 miles of sidewalks. So bigger area than a lot of people realize. The problem is that, so we all help to fund the maintenance of this if you own a piece of property. And for single family homes, the amount is $3.08 every year. This hasn't changed since 1997. And we haven't built a whole lot of new homes in that time. So effectively, the purchasing power of our maintenance fund has fallen in half over these past years. And that's why we're stuck having to choose. Do we keep up the medians or do we grind down the tripping hazards on the sidewalks? We don't think that's really a good way to approach our public infrastructure. in general and could use some more money for this fund. One question I get a lot is, well, why don't, county's got a big enough budget, why don't you just divert the money from somewhere else? I mean, it seems like a minor enough thing here. The issue is that there's all these little sub kind of systems and governments, these county service areas. So if we take money from the county general fund to pay for live oak street trees, well, folks in Aptos who also have a fund to do the same thing are gonna say, well, what about us? Can't you bail us out? County fire in the whole rural area is paid for with the county service area. They could also say, hey, well, we'd like some general fund money to pay for a better fire service out here. There's a number of CSAs related to private roads, as well as septic systems for housing groups of homes. So, really the cleanest way to deal with this is just to pursue a modest rate increase for CSA 9E. We're still waiting for the final numbers, but rate study was done. And we think that we can get back to healthy balance for the fund and do all the work that's needed for single family homes going from $3 to about $7.96, multifamily like apartments or mobile homes from $1.85 to $6.10. And then really trying to make sure commercial properties pay their fair share. We see a big jump there from $3 to $67. This is going to be up to you. Just going to send out a special ballot probably at the beginning of November, and you can decide whether or not you'd like to see better maintenance of these areas.
Is that just per year?
That's just once per year. Yes, that is not.
The tiny amount is just for one property for 1 year.
Correct.
You could $5 billion.
Most cup, yeah. I think I paid $5 for my cup of coffee, $6 with that. Yeah.
Is that a 50% or a 60 or a 2/3 vote?
I believe it's just 50% of all ballots returned. Right. So that's that. Look out for that arriving in your mailbox in November. All right. So that the last thing I'll mention is 3 here. The East Cliff Shopping Center. Some folks have let me know, hey, businesses are not getting their leases renewed. What's going on? Well, what's going on is that Swenson is going to revamp the shopping center. They're putting in a new roof on all the buildings, and they're going to reconfigure the parking so that there's a better flow throughout the whole area. Try to do some nice little bulb out kind of seating areas. Try to bring in some good anchor tenants. I don't know of any that have been confirmed, but I think they're looking at options to bring in a grocer or a baker, or coffee shop, and other things that will just make it a little bit more active regularly. Live Oak Farmers Market is not going anywhere. I think Swenson recognized the value of them being there every Saturday. And I know I've written letters of support for them as well. I think we all love the farmers market, and it's a great institution exactly where it is. Okay, so now let's head over here to the harbor area. The city has got a project plan to replace the bridge here over the harbor. It's been a bit of impending doom now for years. We think they are actually going to be able to move forward that next year. And Matt, jump in here if I'm wrong with anything. I don't think they've gotten all their permits, but we expect them to start work on this bridge at some point next year. And I think we're still waiting for any plan on how they expect to manage traffic through here, but it'll obviously be a little bit constrained.
Manu,
Yes, Toby.
there's a public ad in today's Sentinel inviting bids for construction of this project.
Okay.
So their calendar is to have a contractor on board by the end of this year.
There you go.
Yeah.
And probably start construction then in the spring. So I assume it's all permitted up at this point.
It is not all permitted up,
Oh, okay.
but in terms of getting a contractor in place, it starts today.
Okay. Well, for those of you online, in case you didn't hear that, sounds like the city is advertising for contractors to do this work. So concrete steps, to move forward. All right. I've also got a 5 on here on the rail trail project. The Regional Transportation Commission has approved the environmental impact report for these segments of the rail trail that go really from in front of the boardwalk all the way to 17th Avenue. I think they are also still seeking permits for from a number of entities, including the Coastal Commission. But that project is not likely to get started until late 2025, or maybe even 2026. We do have all the funding identified that we need for, unless anything else comes up, but we've got some generous state grants to pay for that. So again, later 2025. We did look at any options to use the rail bridge as an intermediate solution while the harbor bridge was under construction, but really just couldn't figure out a project that was going to be lightweight and fast enough to get it done. Yeah, question?
Question on the rail trail is, are motorized vehicles going to be permitted on
By motorized, do you mean like an e-bike, or do you
Yeah.
mean
anything with a motor? Electric skateboard?
if it's allowed on a bike path today, then it'll be allowed on the rail trail, I think is the kind of the current thinking. I mean, you're not gonna be able to drive a small car or a motorcycle. But yes, if it's legal and bike path, so yes, an electrified skateboard or bicycle would still be considered legal options there. Okay, moving now up. Oh, sorry, one thing I wanted to mention, 6th Avenue, I was getting some concerns about people speeding on that road. So we sent out a survey asking if people in the neighborhood would support speed bumps. We get requests for speed bumps or road tables all the time. And so the county has a good 13-step process in place, which basically involves talking to your neighbors, making sure that you're not the only one on the street that wants to see the bumps. And then if you feel like you've got a majority support in the area, reaching out to our Public Works Department or division and requesting like a formal survey of where the bumps would go. And then ultimately you need a formal petition. And there is a cost share requirement because we get so many requests for these, and they are a shocking $8,000 per bump to install. So we ask a 50-50 cost share with residents. So if you're willing to put up one half, the county will put in the other. So we just sent out a survey for 6th Avenue here, online survey to get a sense if that's something that the whole neighborhood is interested in seeing. Okay, moving up to the big empty lot at 7th and Bromer. That is actually still a county-owned parcel. There's a redevelopment project or opportunity. We put out to bid to affordable housing developers that we'd like to see something done there. Waiting back for any responses. I think depending on what kind of responses we get and how interested in what area, then we open it up to more interested parties. I've heard some interest that maybe the harbor would apply for a project. I'm not sure where they're at with any of those plans, the Harbor Port District. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about go along Bromer here and look at some new bus routes that were just approved. So we have been doing everything we can. I sit on the Metro board of directors, and over there at the Metro, we've been doing everything we can to improve bus service throughout our community. You might have heard about the largest order of hydrogen buses in the country, and we're on track to have almost 70% of the entire bus fleet zero emissions within the next 2 years or so. And then we also want those buses to be full and well used. So we have redesigned the Metro map to be a little bit easier to understand and more frequent, because we know that the more frequent the bus comes, the more people will ride. So with this new map, you'll notice one big change is the numbering through Live Oak. Rather than the 66, 68, 69, A, W, 72, it's the 1, the 2, and the 3. So hopefully that's a little bit more accessible to people who don't ride the bus currently and would think they might like to. Also, we know that smaller numbers people think are faster. It's true. That's why wide receivers are all going from the high 80s down to numbers. I mean, 1 through 10 or 0 if they can get it. So this will encourage people to ride the bus because they will perceive it as faster, and it will be. We are also, you'll notice the 3 line goes here through Live Oak, just splits around here. It's not going across Murray Street right now because of that bridge project. But the 3 goes all the way up to UCSC. You can ride without a change from Live Oak, all the way up to the university. And we know it's important because there are definitely lots of students that live in Live Oak. You know, live next to one at every place, or a few of them at every location I've lived throughout this area. So yeah, we're just looking at ways that our whole network can be more improved. You also see this 15-minute service here going up to the university. So just more frequent, more reliable. In the future, we want to improve these routes even more to get up to 15-minute headways on the 1, the 2, and the 3 there. You'll see some of the stacking the 1 and the 2 on SoCal Drive. This red line is 15-minute frequency. This is purple is 20-minute frequency over here. So.
And the 1, 2, the ones on 7th Avenue, are they still on the hour?
They'll be actually every
30 minutes.
35 minutes here. I think with
I
this
see.
split, those will be every 60 minutes, but this portion will be on the every 35 minutes, and this portion will be every
That's
35
great
minutes.
news, the transfer thing from Live Oak up to the university. We would do more that way if we can. Yeah, that's great news.
That's the goal,
Terrific.
yes. And so this will go into effect I think on the December 21st, the end of this year. Okay, moving back out towards the coast. Let's talk about our coastal vulnerability assessment. Heard a lot from people after this last winter about, gosh, we really need to build bridges all through here. It's true, we'd love to. Pretty expensive projects. So, you know, as opposed to just pulling out a bulldozer and pushing the sand off. So I think, yes, long range, we'd love to build bridges here. Don't have any funds in the immediate term. But the other reason I bring up this topic is if you are a coastal property owner around here, you're probably following our local coastal program amendment with interest. You might know that the Coastal Commission rejected the county's local coastal program amendment was last year. But they've come back and said, well, but we do want to help you get it right on the second time around. And they gave us a whopping $780,000 to do a vulnerability assessment for the area, which really looks at how infrastructure will need to be improved, what infrastructure is threatened at different levels of sea level rise, and how to make the best plan that protects our infrastructure at different levels of impact. There will be an extensive outreach component for this coming soon. So if this is of interest to you, stay tuned. Okay, moving along to Moore & Lake. This is also a key area that we are working to improve for multiple reasons. One, just to clean up the lake itself. It gets a lot of stormwater runoff, both from the neighborhoods around Placer and the Capitola Mall and everything. And so we just like to see the water quality improve, so it's a better habitat. We also know that the parking infrastructure there could be improved as well in terms of the parking lot, bathrooms, even the crossing over to the beach. And so we're working on a master plan now that will really cover both of those aspects, the habitat restoration and public access. If you didn't know, also Moore & Lake is home to a significant portion of the monarch overwintering population. It varies between the second and third largest overwintering site in the county, and it's home sometimes as much as 5% of the entire population statewide in California. So a very significant site. And so a component of this is the monarch butterfly habitat management plan. And we expect a draft of this in the fall. Okay. I've heard lots of concern about people camping on the beach in the area, in this area around Morin and Corcoran Lagoon. And so I have been working pretty diligently with our community policing unit at the Sheriff's Center, or within the Sheriff's Office, the Live Oak Service Center. In particular, Sergeant Randall Hopp, who is kind of our go-to guy in the Sheriff's Office for Live Oak issues like this. So he has worked to help people move along from different camp when they were trying to camp on the beach in this area a number of times. And it's a great first point of outreach. If you see someone camping illegally on the beach, This is the number for the Live Oak Service Center, 831-454-7683. Or you can email Randall with photos, if you notice an issue that's going on too long. And then we are, working with the Parks Department as well, who really, of course, handles cleanup and maintenance of the area and can remove debris, or old stuff from old campsites, since they're the ones with the trucks and, removing trash in general, so they can drive onto the beach and get stuff. So it's sort of a 1-2 plan here. If you see someone camping that shouldn't be, let the sheriff's office know. Once the people are removed, if there's any debris, we'll get the Parks Department in there.
Is there some way that, this can be entered into a data system? How many, when the call was, how many campsites, what was the, spreadsheet? Is that available, to?
I mean, I could certainly work with Sergeant Hop and see what their, current call log looks like. And if they have a specific tag, for this issue, so that we would know, this call in the state was related to camping in this area.
Just in terms of measurable outcome, what we're doing, which is great. Just wondering how, and I don't want to make any more work for him or you, but it would be interesting to see if what a measurable outcome of the work that we're all doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We can look at how the calls are sort of tagged, so that we can filter them to see what's related to this issue. Okay, and last but not least, we'll end on vacation rentals. And we do have our code compliance manager, Aaron Landry, on the line, who can talk more about our new and improved program for managing vacation rentals in the area. We have taken a number of steps in recent years to try to increase enforcement and improve things for those of you living in these neighborhoods that are heavily impacted by vacation rentals. First, the vacation rental ordinance was strengthened to create a process where we can remove people's permits after a number of violations. I will say we've looked into a number of complaints that I've received about specific vacation rentals. The biggest issue that we're running into here on enforcement is typically around noise complaints. And that's because the sheriff's office will only cite folks for a noise violation, typically after repeated warnings. That's a different group of people in there from one night to the next. It's hard to get a repeated violation. And then, they'll even on the same night, usually they'll warn them once before citing them. And so they might get a warning, but then those citations are not getting into the system and therefore can't be used against, vacation rentals that have not really properly informed the folks that are renting the property of, the community standards, norms, and laws. So that is one way that we think we can in the future continue to improve things, is maybe actually go at it through the noise ordinance. But at least there's a process to remove vacation rental permits. We've also looked at the host compliance software that our auditor, treasurer, tax collector uses to ensure that vacation rentals are paying their transient occupancy taxes. Basically, this software looks at all of the major listing sites, VRBO, Airbnb, and says, okay, there's a listing here on whatever, 19th Avenue. Did we receive their taxes this year? And so if they haven't, they let the tax collector know, and they work with them to get what we're owed as a community for that. However, they were not using that or sharing that data with our planning office until recently, which of course is responsible for actually permitting vacation rentals. I worked have done some work with the planning office and auditor, treasurer, tax collector to make sure that that data is being shared, and we did send out hundreds of notifications of violation to vacation rentals operating throughout the community without permits. And finally, well, actually, there's a couple of things here, but we have hired a full-time code compliance officer dedicated specifically to the vacation rental issue. Code compliance officers deal with a lot of crazy stuff throughout this community. Particularly some of the rural areas, where people kind of, do whatever you want territory and have all kinds of stuff on their property and fires are starting. There is a lot of really life-threatening issues that they deal with. And so we've been trying to balance that with vacation rental compliance. And the way we're going to do that is with this dedicated code compliance officer, paid for with the recent increase in transient occupancy taxes on vacation rentals. One final note before I hand it over to Aaron is that we also, with that increase in transient occupancy tax on vacation rentals, are using some of those new funds to help build community projects in the areas, the neighborhoods that are most impacted by vacation rentals. So in this past year, we were able to match some community funds raised for a new play structure at Floral Park. The community raised about $300,000, and as a county, we contributed $100,000 to complete the funding needed for a new play structure there. So that's just 1 year, and I'm hoping to make further improvements throughout the community in the coming years with some of these funds. Moran Lake has come up a number of times. If you have other ideas for improved crosswalks or other facilities there, if you've got other ideas, I'd love to hear. And now I'll hand it over to Aaron. If you're there, Aaron, can you hear me? We might need to, Jamie, if you're there, maybe you wanna.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Let me just turn up the volume here so everyone can hear you. Well, I mean, Aaron, you can say as much or as little as you want. You can always take questions, but yeah, anything you want to add on this topic?
Yeah, my name's Aaron Landry. I'm the code compliance manager. I've been with the county doing code compliance for going on 19 years now. And just to kind of touch on what Manu was talking about with.
Sorry, hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can turn it up the volume a little bit more here.
Can you hear me?
Well, I barely hear.
Okay. I'll try to get closer.
I think it's just on our end here in the.
That's right. The audio is good online.
That's 100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna try the old bring the computer closer to the audience trick.
Does that help? Hear me any better?
He could get his mouth, Aaron could get his mouth closer to the mic in his computer.
There, I'm just gonna flip this around. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so I'm the manager for the section. I've been with the county for going on 19 years doing code compliance. And touching on what Manu had mentioned, we did hire a full-time code compliance investigator for the vacation rentals. We're taking a new approach as being proactive as opposed to reactive, which we were in the future, in the past. The board mandated years ago that we be, we're complaint driven. So I encourage people out there, residents, neighbors, that if you do have a complaint, you can file a complaint online at SCCO Planning, which is the planning's website. There's a tab there for code compliance, and you can just simply submit a complaint. We have been working with the sheriff's office. We're meeting quarterly on that. And what we do is we just kind of compare notes. If they have issues with a certain individual that we assume is a vacation rental, we're just trying to keep that communication open a lot better, so that again, we're sharing information and trying to be more due diligent in how we do this. So yeah, I'd say like right now is the ordinance was toughened up. We currently issue citations for vacation rentals. Typically, we have the option to issue a citation or a notice of violation. First citation is $100. Second is $2. Third is $5. We can issue those per day per violation, and that's really one way we're trying to get people's attention. We realize that $100 isn't going to do anything for a vacation rental, but when you start seeing it add up to $500 a day, that could hopefully get their attention. Yeah, so I mean that's really where we're at. We're excited. We got like Manu mentioned, the new investigator, and we're getting them up and running. Hopefully, get them out in the field here pretty quick. Going over all the codes and stuff, and just trying to make sure we have our ducks in a row. And we currently have 4 investigators, three now have extensive experience in the vacation rental stuff. They've been here since the beginning. We are working with Rentalscape. They were formerly using Host Compliance, but the program we use now is Rentalscape. And so we're trying to communicate better with the auditor, trying to get more information on who's paying TOTs. We did a big data dump and went through like 500 vacation rentals that we assumed were potentially without a permit. We sent out letters, and we got a lot of compliance that way. But this is our next step, to have a full-time investigator. That's going to be his job, is tracking all this stuff, making sure everybody has their phone numbers listed on their advertisement, make sure that they have the information posted outside, make sure they're meeting the parking requirements, number of room requirements, and all that kind of stuff. And you're welcome to take a look at the code. It's I believe it's 1310. Let me get it here. 1310-694 is the vacation rental code. And you can look at that on our website also. There's a tab on the bottom right that says county code. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got, unless anybody has any questions.
Great, thank you for that summary, Aaron. We do have a couple of questions here. Sure. Let's start with Joe. I just speak into the mic and.
Well, thank you. And I actually have 2 questions. First, do you have a backlog of vacation rental violations that you're looking at? Because the experience in our neighborhood has been, we've never seen any results from anything. And one in specific, just as a test, about 4 months ago, we had a new vacation rental approved at 334 13th Avenue. And as soon as they were approved, they took their sign down. And so, kind of for an experiment, I sent it in to see what happened. And that's the last I ever heard of it. I marked a little box that said, let me know when you do anything. And maybe you're overwhelmed. And if you are, could you let us know? Because I don't want to go encouraging people to do permit violations when nothing will ever happen. It's the end of my speech / question.
Yeah, we don't have a backlog. We're usually pretty good at getting on those. I would have to look at it, to be honest, make sure that there is a permit. If not, we would get that complaint, and that's what our new investigator, his primary job, that's all he's going to be doing. If the complaint is that there's no posted signage, then he would be out there issuing a citation. Yeah, so we don't currently have a backlog, but I guess I would have to take a look at everything and make sure that permits weren't issued and such. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. And also I wanted to thank
Manu, part of the county app has a layer for vacation rentals. And so when I put in the complaint for 334 13th, I went to see who was manager, who the managers were and all the information, and didn't work. And thanks to Manu's intervention, the site works. I tested it tonight just to make sure, so I didn't say anything incorrect. So thanks for getting the compliance information available.
Yeah, and you said that was 334 13th?
Hi, Aaron. This is Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi. Yes, that is what he said, 334 13th.
Okay.
And I just had one more comment, Aaron. Speaking of the backlog issue, perhaps you could tell folks what they might expect when they make a code complaint in terms of like your timeline for responding.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on the 335 13th. looks like they were approved in 2022, permit to operate a new 5-bedroom vacation rental. So they have a permit, so maybe that's why you didn't hear anything on that. Our current backlog, when it comes to vacation rentals, this is kind of new territory for us. I think the ordinance was introduced in 2016. And we've been receiving complaints and acting upon them, but now with this new proactive approach, I don't see there being a backlog on vacation rentals. In terms of building, zoning, and environmental code violations, there is a backlog. We're just getting staffed up to where we used to be in 2005, to be honest, actually 2008. So we're looking good. The future looks good for us. I think we have a great team right now, and one of my main goals. I just became a manager about 3 months ago, and I have a list of stuff that I've just been wanting to do for so long, and one of them is to tackle that backlog. So that's kind of my intent, but yeah.
Hey, Aaron, when does the new code compliance investigator start for vacation rentals?
He started last month. His name is Tim Moreland. He comes from Sacramento. He's got an extensive background in working with the state Senate. He's got a lot of political background, and he helped write a lot of bills or assisted in writing bills that were primarily revolved around the cannabis industry. But yeah, so yeah, he just started last month.
Yeah, I think it was the end of last month. So anyway, thank you. And Joe, please continue to test the system and report violations, and hopefully we'll hear back from Tim shortly. Toby, go ahead.
Hey, Martin, thanks. And people might know, the ordinance has area-wide limits for the number of vacation rentals.
And it has block limits. A certain proportion can be, and that's it. So what specific steps do you take to stop all those people who were unauthorized vacation rentals from continuing to operate? Or do they just get put on a waiting list? But how do they get stopped from operating once a particular block has met its limit?
That's when we rely on the public to get that complaint and investigate. Again, the new investigator, that's going to be his primary focus. So hopefully we'll see a large reduction in that. We do have an issue with repeat violators, and we're basically developing a way to be more persistent in our denial of vacation rental permits, or let's say they have their permit, we're going to take it away from them if we got a repeat offender. That's another reason why we're working with the sheriff a little bit more, trying to get more information so that we can try to get the bad actors off the road. I know that the Loda area, which is it's considered the Live Oak designation area, then there's I believe Rio Del Mar area. Those are they're super limited in permits. There are, I believe, and I don't know if this was changed in the ordinance, but there is a waiting list to get vacation rental permits in those areas. How that works exactly, I believe it's if somebody has to give it up, and then somebody's taken off that list, and then offered the opportunity to get a vacation rental. Yeah.
I don't know why I keep getting muted, but hopefully with proactive enforcement rather than simply reactive enforcement, we can actually be checking for addresses where we know maybe they're paying the transient occupancy taxes, and we've managed to keep that element of the program working well, but that hasn't been checked against the per block cap,
Right.
right? And so with proactive enforcement, hopefully we'd catch that, and, you know, we could send them a cease and desist and
Okay,
stop and
that-
cut it
that's
off.
my question. What specifically it can be done to stop them from operating when the cap is being met?
Yeah, well, I think tell them we know that you're operating and it's illegal, right? Start by letting them know that, hey, you can't, that the cap has been met, you don't have a permit to operate, your option is to get on the wait list at this point. I mean, and then one other thing that I know Jamie and I have been talking about, Jamie's my analyst that looks at this most closely in the office and has been really studying what improvements we could make to the ordinance. And one thing is that as long as the cap, the current number of vacation rentals is under that 20%, we'll still approve a new one, even if it now is over 20%. So if it's going to take you from even 19% currently to 25%, we'll still approve it. So that's something that could be tweaked to say it cannot be over 20% with the permit approved.
I may offer one suggestion.
Because it's happened to me. You have block limits, but it doesn't take into account properties immediately behind you on the other street that may be also vacation rentals. So we have a number of situations on our street where people literally become surrounded. And it may meet a limit, but it's just so dense on both sides of two different streets that creates a tough situation. So I think there should be consideration to look on the other street as well as just the block limit when considering approving the permit.
Right, great suggestion.
Hermano, my name is Robert Murillo. I'm here tonight with a couple of compadres. We were some of the original authors of the current vacation rental ordinance. I was happy to hear just now that you're aware of my correspondence, which touched on that same issue about the current county code and the way it's interpreted would allow blocks that have an 18 or 19% density for vacation rentals to add another one and exceed that 20% limit. And I would ask my friends here to verify that was never our intent when we wrote the ordinance. The intent was 20% limit on the block. There's no way to get past it. So I would encourage you, when the opportunity arises, to modify the current vacation rental ordinance. Additionally, there's an application pending in our neighborhood. The only way that applicant can get a permit, because his block is full, is to what I call vacation rental gerrymandering. He is scooping out, he wants to combine his block with another block that has open spots on it. And so because of that combination, which is allowed in the code, in theory, he could get a permit. So we've added a whole bunch of parcels, and now he would be under the limit. Although again, adding that new vacation rental would take that new block to 23%. It doesn't look like that is allowed in the code, not because it's 23%, but because it says in the code you can't make a new block and exceed 20%. So there's some technical issues there. Again, there should be alignment in the code. I would encourage you to look at that. Again, related to that, the code allows a planning director to designate anybody in the planning department to decide whether they want to do a block combination or not. And I think that should be at least a level 5 here. So again, I would recommend that you take a look at the ordinance and see if you could raise the threshold for somebody who wants to change a block, because it affects people on, they might not even know what's going on. In this case, it would potentially prevent people from getting from the affected block from getting a vacation rental permit in the future. Two other quick comments. Ever since we wrote this ordinance, we've relied on the sheriff's department to be part of the enforcement mechanism. And as you called out, the sheriff is not totally willing to go out and write citations. And without the citations, we it's not an easy process for code compliance to go back and say, we're going to take your permit away from you. I think at one point last year, I did encourage your office to look at the Placer County vacation rental permit. It's extensive. The fines are much higher. I don't think they rely solely on a sheriff's department citation to decide whether they're going to take away a permit. So I would encourage you to finally go back and look at that. And well, I had one more note here and I can't read my own writing. So at that point, I thank you for your time.
Aaron, I don't think you need this. Is Aaron specific code compliance to vacation now, or is he do code compliance generally? And if he does it generally, I would like to contact him, not tonight, but I would like to I was on 1310 today looking for something about mobile home parking. And so I want to know who I could contact in code compliance to pick his brain. And if Aaron is the person to do, I'll get his email address from you afterward. Is that?
Sure. So Aaron, the question was, what's the best email address for address for general inquiries for code compliance? Yeah, this one is about something for 1310, which is in mobile home rent stabilization.
Parking inside.
Oh, sorry, parking within mobile home parks.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can contact me and I can get them. If I don't have the answer, I can point them in the right direction. Mobile home parks are typically permitted and controlled by the state. So we don't get too involved. I believe we do parking. And then also when a coach is removed and placed in a mobile home park. I know parking is tricky. It's tricky everywhere. But yeah, if I don't have the answer, I can point you in that direction or get you the code section.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so just reach out to you at aaron.landry@santacruzcountyca.gov.
Got it.
Yep.
Got
Thanks.
it. All right, great. All right, if there's no other questions here in the live audience, we'll move to any questions online. If you'd like to ask a question, just go ahead and hit the little reactions button at the bottom of the screen and click raise hand. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone. All right, well, I'm glad. Okay, Brendan. Brendan, go ahead.
Thank you. I posted these on a direct message to you, not knowing how to get my hand up. So I'll just read them. What about limiting the number of vacation rental days per permit, which may assist in the question of Toby being surrounded? And further to that, limiting the number of days per permit could also deal with the permit that is basically a hotel. Having a hotel next door is not good. Next to us, we have a permit, vacation rental permit, that if I had to guess, out of 365 days a year, they rent it 340, 320, and many of them are 3-day, 5-day. The hot tub is elevated off the ground. And if a permanent resident has a hot tub, the probability of them being in that hot tub every day, raising voices, versus people that are on vacation that are in party mode. So I just make those observations.
Thank you for bringing that up, Brendan. It's true that other cities and counties have chosen to regulate vacation rentals with a number of days per year or per month they can operate. I think unincorporated Monterey County is no more than one guest per week or group of guests. and other jurisdictions have limited it to, say, 90 days a year. I think that there's certainly something to that argument, because the biggest thing, as you point out, that is so impactful about these vacation rentals is the fact that they're operating 24/7, 364, and basically as a business in a residential neighborhood. I think probably the best step to explore that would be for my office to sit down with the Coastal Commission, because the last time we talked about a significant change to the ordinance, even just in reducing the total cap for vacation rentals in the area, they pushed back, and ultimately, I think we were trying to bring it from 260 permits in the Live Oak designated area down to 220. And they said, sorry, that would reduce opportunities for people visiting the coast, and we're not going to let you change it that way. So I think that it's a larger, some things are tweaks to the ordinance, right? Like the 20, specifying that it can't be over 20% with the new edition, or, maybe looking at the surrounding blocks as well. And I think some things are more substantial changes, which we should probably, the best way to go about would be having that conversation with Coastal and seeing if we can find any common ground. But thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Joyce Harrington. Joyce? Can you unmute?
Sorry.
There we go. We hear you.
There we go. Thanks. Hi. I've got a property that I've had as a vacation rental on Opal Cliff for 22 years now. And so I've seen it go through a lot of processes and original permit that I've still got. And I also have a homestay in Santa Barbara County and another property up on the coast in Oregon. So I see a lot of different approaches for trying to control this and manage this. And I'm all about being good to the neighbors. I just don't know how the heck anyone would ever count the days that somebody books their property with us being on 3, 4, 5 different platforms, direct bookings, Google, VRBO. Who's going to count that, and how would they ever even manage to do that correctly? So just my thought on that, I just, even though I know some places do that, New York City has that in their new code, but I don't know do it.
It's a great observation, Joyce. Any law is only as good as its enforcement, as we're all very aware of with this ordinance.
I might point out, it just contrasts that the TOT reporting requires you to tell them how many days in each reporting period.
Right.
So there is a way to count him.
Right. So yeah, the observation was that perhaps we could get at it through the transient occupancy tax reporting. Anyway, thank you for that observation, Joyce. Is there anyone else online that wants to make a comment or has a question? Yeah, you're in the live audience.
Question is, what is
the annual revenue that we're receiving from the TOT, and what is the approximate cost for employment for this new enforcement agent?
Sorry, the question was total revenue we get from transient occupancy taxes and the cost for this particular staff person. I want to say it's somewhere between $5 and $7 million per year in transient occupancy taxes total to the county. I'd have to double check that, but it's
Is that for vacation rentals or includes hotels?
Yeah.
That's including hotels, right? I don't think we've got it separated out. I have to talk to the auditor, treasurer, tax collector about the specific amount from short-term rentals. I know the increase actually recently that was voted on was it might be more like 10 million. I think because the increase from 11% to 14% for short-term rentals yielded I think around $2 million a year. So and then the cost for this position, with salary and benefits, I don't know exactly, but I'm gonna guess around 150,000. Joe?
When you're ready, I have one other question since the Public Works Director is here.
Good.
I've lived in Live Oak a long time, so I remember what East Cliff used to look like. And it's pretty close now to what it was when we moved in. But one of the experiments redevelopment did was put those crosswalks in that were hatched. And the idea was, and I've mentioned this before, is to slow the traffic down. It really didn't slow the traffic down. It just made a lot of noise. What has really helped in the pedestrian crosswalks are those flashing lights. That makes a huge difference. So if you're repaving the street, I would encourage you to get rid of those hash things because they just make a ton of noise. And they look ugly after a while and they don't do any good. And just keep those flashing lights on. And, you know, if somebody wants them, I'd encourage them. I've seen that evolution. And I was really thrilled when I saw those.
Thanks for the feedback. I know those are not cheap to put in, so sure we'd happily explore not replacing them. But appreciate the feedback. Okay, looks like I got one last question here from Cindy Adams online.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. So we're talking about revenue and TOT and the percentage of vacation rentals allowed on a street or a block, etc. And I have kind of the opposite question because on my street, 3 of my neighbors hold a vacation rental permit, and of those 3 of them do not use them ever. So is there any consideration or a balance between having and why they do it is because they can and while they're not transferable when you sell a property, it gets one more line item in a listing. So is there any consideration for looking at the revenue, the top revenue, as compared to the individual permit, and deciding whether or not, we've issued these permits to these people for 3 years and we've received 0 revenue?
That's an interesting observation. I mean, certainly something we could look at.
I'm just looking at how do you generate revenue, top revenue, and balance it with making sure that you have the right number of vacation rentals. And if you look at our street, you would we immediately look like we are at least 20%. But I know 3 of those,
right.
I've lived in my house for 15 plus years. None of those houses have ever been rented.
Yeah, well, it's certainly an interesting point. I don't think the ordinance currently addresses revoking permits for non-use, but it is something we could look at.
Did I address that?
Sure, go ahead. Just make sure the mic is on so the online audience can hear you as well.
Per county code.
Requires active use of vacation rental 3 years out of the 5 years.
Okay. So in case you didn't hear, the current code does require use. Is that defined as just one night?
It says significant use.
Okay.
Significant.
Current code does require significant use 3 out of 5 years. Of course, once again, I don't think we've had any proactive enforcement of that part of the code either. So maybe something that could change with the new dedicated person to this.
Supposedly a county person, when you renew your permit, they're checking for that. They want you to furnish proof of that through TO2 tax, I presume, or a statement from somebody that have a platform using that.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there is some checking.
Right.
Code was one of the compromises in terms of putting the cap in was that people sit on.
Compromises in creating the ordinance so people wouldn't sit on ordinances and not do anything with them.
Okay, thank you for for the discussion and explanation. All right, well, if there's no other questions online, I'm going to go ahead and bring the meeting to a close. As holding this computer is getting a little tiring. Thank you everyone for joining us online. You're welcome to follow up with my office at first.district at Santa Cruz County ca.gov. And appreciate you joining us tonight. And I'll stick around here in the live audience for a little longer. Thank you, everyone.